November 14, 2016. 300 meters from Reactor 4. 4. At Chernobyl, engineers are about to slide a 36,000-ton steel arch heavier than 10 Eiffel Towers over, the most radioactive place on Earth. They have 15 days to move it, 327 meters into position. If they're off by even a meter, the structure crashes into the crumbling sarcophagus. And if that collapses while they're moving it, 200 tons of nuclear fuel still inside the destroyed reactor releases a radioactive cloud across Europe. This is the story of how engineers built the largest movable structure in human history. To contain a ticking time bomb, to understand why they were sliding a structure the size of 2 football fields over a nuclear disaster, you need to go back 30 years, to April 26, 1986. When everything went wrong, April 26, 1986, reactor number 4 at Chernobyl explodes. A steam explosion, then fire. For 9 days it burned, throwing radioactive material into the atmosphere that drifted across the Soviet Union and Europe. 2 workers died in the initial blast. 28 firefighters and plant workers died from radiation in the following weeks. Thousands more would die from cancer in the decades that followed. But here's what makes this nightmare unique. After the explosion, almost 200 tons of nuclear fuel transformed into unbelievable amounts of fuel-containing materials still inside the destroyed reactor. And here's the terrifying part. Inside the sarcophagus, about 95% of the fuel that was in the reactor at the moment of the accident still remains. In some rooms, radiation levels hit 2050 roentgens. That's enough to kill you in 20 minutes. So in 1986, Soviet engineers did the only thing they could. They built a steel and concrete shelter in just 6 months under extreme conditions and severe time constraints. They called it the sarcophagus, and it was never meant to be permanent. Because of the highest construction rates and remote methods used in 1986, the sarcophagus leaves much to be desired. The total area of cracks in the roof and walls makes 1,000 square meters. Let me put that in perspective. 1,000 square meters of cracks. That's an Olympic-sized swimming pool's worth of holes letting radiation leak out. A section of the machine hull collapsed in 2012. Engineers realized they were running out of time. Studies determined the likelihood of the original sarcophagus's total collapse was very high. If it collapsed completely, it would release radioactive dust into the environment, potentially affecting millions. So in 2004, after years of international negotiations, engineers approved a radical solution. Build the largest movable structure ever created and slide it over the radioactive tomb. Total cost, 2.2 billion euros, or $2.5 billion. Funded by 45 countries through the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. But here's the impossible part. To minimize radiation exposure to workers, the new safe confinement structure had to be built on skids adjacent to the sarcophagus and slid into place over it on Teflon rails. They couldn't build it on top of the reactor. Too radioactive. They had to build it 300 meters away. And slide it. The new safe confinement isn't just big, it's apocalyptically massive. The arch-shaped structure measures 108 meters high, as tall as a 35-story building, 162 meters long, with a span of 257 meters wider than 2 football fields. The metal frame weighs 36,000 tons, about the same as 3 Eiffel Towers. It's tall enough to slide over St. Paul's Cathedral in London or Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. And get this, it was built to withstand temperatures from -43 to +45 degrees Celsius and resist a Category 3 tornado. Metal structural components were prefabricated in Italy and assembled at the project site in a specially designed area. The foundation was covered with a concrete slab to minimize radiation exposure for workers. The first half of the arch was lifted to its complete height in April 2014. The second half in October 2014. The 2 halves were successfully connected in August 2015, using more than 1,000 bolts. Every single bolt had to be perfectly tightened, not too loose, not too tight. More than 1,000 workers from 25 nationalities worked on this project. A team of 60 people was entrusted with protecting employees from radiation. And then came the most dangerous part. Moving it. November 2016. The massive structure was slid into place on Teflon rails, using hydraulic jacks. 327 meters. That's how far they had to move. 36,000 tons of steel with millimeter precision. Think about this. You're pushing something that weighs as much as 25,000 cars over rails next to a radioactive reactor that could collapse at any moment. And if you're off by even a meter, the whole thing crashes into the old sarcophagus and potentially triggers exactly what you're trying to prevent. The movement took 15 days, spread across November 14th to the 29th. Every day, engineers would advance the structure a few meters. Stop. Check alignment. Monitor radiation levels. Check structural integrity. Then, advance again. The structure and mechanical handling equipment were all designed to prevent radiological exposure. Workers wore dosimeters that would scream if radiation levels got too high. Some areas were so hot that workers could only stay 4 minutes before they de-hit their lifetime exposure limit. On November 29, 2016, the arch finally locked into position. They'd done it. The new Safe Confinement is designed to last 100 years. Inside, remotely operated bridge cranes can lift 50 tons and will slowly dismantle the old sarcophagus and remove the radioactive material. But here's what keeps me up at night. Inside that destroyed reactor, there's still 95% of the original fuel. 200 tons of nuclear material in some rooms, with dose rates still equal to thousands of rentgons per hour. This structured this $2.2 billion. Engineering marvelous, just a band-aid, a temporary solution to buy humanity 100 years to figure out what to do with the most dangerous place on Earth. And as Ukraine faces ongoing conflict, there's real concern about whether they can afford the maintenance costs for this structure that must never, ever fail. Right now, that arch is standing over Chernobyl, 36,000 tons of steel, taller than Notre Dame, wider than 2 football fields, protecting Europe from 200 tons of nuclear fuel that will remain deadly for 20,000 years. If this changed how you see nuclear engineering, hit subscribe. Because the stories behind our world's most dangerous structures, they never really end.